Yeah, what I would say is what I say about pretty much everything as it relates to something that's on the calendar. Here's what I mean. You know that that's coming up. You know that the holidays are coming up. Have a plan in place for how you're going to manage yourself.
That's good.
Yeah, yeah. Because if you fail to plan, then you're planning to fail. And so, what we tend to do when we're in that fragile state is we just kind of ignore it. There's that suppression coming back. I don't want to think about that. I'm going to just push that. And then all of a sudden, it's on you. You don't have a plan. And so I encourage people like this is a difficult time, or this will be a difficult time, because this has just been a year, the past 2 years, like the amount of deaths back to back, the grief that we've had to experience is really traumatic grief, and also complex grief, because it's just one on top of the other, and people are becoming numb. The thing about becoming numb is that you think you're good and healed until you get triggered. And so
Yeah.
it's usually something like the holidays that will cause that trigger to be activated or to be set off. And so I encourage people to get out ahead of that. Go ahead and make a plan on what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, where you're going to be. And inside of that plan, make sure that you're not isolating to the point of intrusion. I have a saying: isolation leads to intrusion. What I simply mean is that if you're by yourself with yourself for too long and you're in a fragile crisis kind of state, then you open yourself up for intrusive thoughts. Intrusive thoughts will lead to intrusive behaviors. And so you'll find yourself just kind of out on a limb, doing stuff that you are not wanting to do, but because you're so isolated, you don't have any other option. And so get yourself involved in community, like plan ahead. And even in your planning, how are you going to honor the memory of your loved one? Because there are a lot of chairs that have empty spots in them this year. So get out ahead of that. How are we going to honor the person or the persons that are no longer here? The family that's remaining, the friends that are remaining. What are we going to do? How are we going to get together and strengthen one another during this time? There's safety in that community.
That's good. That's really good. And for someone who may not be able to afford like an ongoing therapist, would you have any recommendations? I'm sorry, for that person.
Yeah, what I would say is start with community mental health. I worked in community mental health for 5 years as an administrator and as a supervisor. And so I kind of understand the intricacies of how that works. And so basically, that's going to go by your pay, right? It's going to be like a sliding scale. And so there
Mhm.
are all types of resources such as that. Those community mental health centers are grant funded. They're quasi governmental agencies, and so there are resources out there that you can literally be paying $10, $15 per month
Wow.
for session. And then in that vein, you have to look at what are my priorities,
Right.
because we spend $15 just without thinking about it. $20
Right.
just kind of goes. And so when people tell me that they can't afford therapy, it's different for different people. But I start asking questions, like, where have you tried? Where have you gone? And if they kind of tell me, this is how much it costs, then okay, let's look at the other expenses that you have and what is priority in your life right now. And so you can drop down the number of sessions once a month, every 3 months, but do what you need to do to get the help that you need. But there are all types of resources. There are even some communities that have free therapy. They have programs that are 100% grant funded, and you just come in on a grant. And so do your research, because if you want to be healed and you want to walk that healing out, you'll do what it takes. Just like if you had a wound and it was hurting you really bad, physical pain, you would do something to help heal that wound.
Yeah.
So
That's
the same
good.
with our mental health. We have to be that adamant about, I can't live like this. I can't suppress this pain thinking I'm going to be okay. I'm okay right now, but I know that I'm not going to be okay in the future. But recommend that you don't isolate, and that you reach out to someone immediately. If you feel like you can't reach out to someone within your network or within your community, within your tribe, there are suicide hotlines that you can call. Before you get to the step of calling 911, you can call that hotline. Now it's become so accessible that there are crisis counselors that you can text. So this is all at the touch of your fingers on Google. So there are hotlines, there are crisis text lines, but what you don't want to do is stay in your head and continue to let those thoughts ruminate through your mind to the point where they just become the only option that you have.